Hello friends, welcome back to a new video. My name is Allison and today's video is about my reading goals for the rest of 2021. So back in January I did a reading goals video for like the entire year, things that I wanted to accomplish in my reading life specifically, and this is not like a check-in to see how I'm doing on those goals. I did look at them the other day and I'm pretty much on track with those. I'm pretty sure they were like read 48 books, try not to spend very much money on merch, and read all of my 2020 books before the end of 2021. And I'm on track to reading those 48 books. I think I'm at 25 out of 48 or something like that. And I have bought hardly any merch this year, which I am very impressed with. Basically all the merch that I've gotten this year was stuff that I pre-ordered like back in 2020. So there's been like one thing that I actually purchased this year that is bookish merch, but it's one of those things that I said would be allowed, and it is for like my ultimate favorite fandom, the Court of Thorns and Roses fandom. So that's pretty much the only merch I bought this year. And then I read all of my 2020 books, so I am on track for completing those goals for 2021, which is really exciting. But I wanted to set up kind of like a reading plan for the rest of the year because there are things that I want to, like books that I want to get read before the year ends and stuff like that. So I'm gonna try to keep this video kind of short, but I figured it wouldn't be like a booktube video if I didn't also hold books while talking about those books, because I did think about just like rattling off all of the books that I want to read, and I'm like, that's boring, we'll just hold up the books so people know what the heck you're even talking about. So the first thing on my to-do list, or the list for this video, is to finish up my rereads. So I love rereading books. I especially love rereading my favorites. So far the only series that I have been rereading every year is A Court of Thorns and Roses. My other top favorite series I have started a reread for this year. So basically I have technically four series that I am rereading this year, which is why I'm not starting any more rereads for 2021, because I don't think I'm going to have time. One of the first ones I started for this year was my reread for Red Rising. This was the first book that I read in the new year in 2021 in January. This was the first book that I picked up. This is a adult science fiction written by Pierce Brown, and it is currently a 5-book series, but there is going to be 6 books in total. The first 3 books, which are the 3 that I have decided to reread this year, the original trilogy, are Red Rising, Golden Sun, and then Morning Star, and those are the only 3 I'm going to reread this year. I was going to reread the other 2 books that are like the second trilogy in the saga, and I decided not to because I'm pretty sure at this point the 6th and final book is not going to get released this year. Every time I've checked, it just says it doesn't even have like an expected publication year, so I'm not keeping my hopes up that that book is going to get released this year, which is fine. That just gives me time to focus on other things, because the other 2 books, Iron Gold and Dark Age, are very big and very dense, and they're a lot. So I'm just going to be rereading the original trilogy this year. I've already reread this one, and I need to continue with Golden Sun sometime soon. I'm not really sure when I'm going to get back into that one, because I want to read them physically, I don't want to audiobook them. So I will explain the audiobook part in a minute. But that is the first series that I need to finish my reread of. The next series that I have already started rereading is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. And this is an 8-book young adult fantasy series. And I read the whole thing over the course of like a year, I think. Maybe it was 2 years, depending on when I started and finished. But it's a really great series, and I really like it, and I just felt like it was time to reread it because I read the whole freaking thing so fast, or I read each book really fast, that I don't think I really grasped like what the heck was even happening, especially in Kingdom of Ash, the last novel, because I just had to freaking figure out what was going to happen. So I read it way too fast, and this is where the audiobook part comes in. I don't like listening to a book I've never read before on audio because I have a really bad habit of like zoning out and like not paying attention to the audiobook, and I probably would be okay doing that with anything other than like fantasy and science fiction, which is basically all that I read. So I only like to listen to audiobooks of books that I've already read at least one time. If I read it more than one time, then definitely audiobook, because I mean, how much more can you pick up on the third or fourth reread? So I am planning to, I've already read, like I physically read this one, and I'm actually planning to listen to Crown of Midnight, the second novel in the series, on audiobook, because I figured out that if I have an audiobook going at the same time as I have a physical book going, I can read 2 books a week, when normally I can usually only get through 1 if it's just a physical book. So my plan is to listen to the second book on audio. I don't know if I'll continue the series on audiobook because the third book gets freaking amazing and the whole series is really good. The only book that I might listen to on audio in this series is the Tower of Dawn one, just because I love that book and I really like the character growth that happens in that one, but it can just get really dry. Like, it's not very action-packed, so it can just get like, this book needs to be over already. And it's not a small book. It's like, I don't know, it's almost 800 pages, I think. It's not a tiny book at all. So if I'm gonna audiobook any of the other ones, it would probably be that one. I know for sure I'm going to be reading Heir of Fire and Queen of Shadows. Is that what it's called? I gotta look. Yeah, Queen of Shadows and Heir of Fire I will be reading physically because I loved both of those. Tower of Dawn I will probably audiobook, and then I will probably read physically Kingdom of Ash. So that is my plan for this series. The next reread on my list is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. So this is an ongoing series, and I guess it could technically be YA. The first book, I would probably consider the first one borderline YA, like it's probably like the higher end of YA, but then after this the books just get more mature and more intense, so I feel like it might start out as YA, but it definitely turns into adult by the time you get to the third book. The fourth book just came out, and that one is called The Mask Falling, and I have not read it yet. It came out at the beginning of 2021, and it's been a very long time, like probably 2 years at this point since I read the last book that had gotten released. So I figured a reread was in order. As far as I know, this is still a 7-book series, but there's only 4 of them out so far, so I'm probably going to be rereading them a lot. I'm sure by the time like the 5th and 6th books are getting released, I'm going to be audiobooking like the first 2 at least, because I don't really think I need to read them 3 or 4 times. So that is my plan with this one. So I've already read this one, and I need to read the second and third one so that I can get to the fourth one, which would be a new to me book. The last series that I have to reread this year is one that I reread every year, and it is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. And I think this time around I'm going to do the audiobook for all of them, other than A Court of Silver Flames, aka The Book That Shall Not Be Named, and we don't talk about it on this channel because it makes Allison rant. So I am never going to read that book again, but the original trilogy and the novella, I like to read those every year. I usually start in November, ending A Court of Frost and Starlight on or around Christmas or the solstice, because that's what is celebrated in that book. So that is like my planned reread every year. I know I'm going to start A Court of Thorns and Roses in November and then read it through to December, like the first 4 books: The Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, A Court of Wings and Ruin, and A Court of Frost and Starlight. That's a lot of courts of. So that is my plan for this one, and I plan it every year, so I already know it's going to come up. I guess I didn't really need to talk about it in this video, but here we are. The next thing I want to talk about is all of the books that I plan to read in the second half of 2021, and since I have all of my 2020 books read, I can now focus on all of the books that I purchased in the first half of 2021. So from like January to June, the books that I purchased in between that time that have not been read yet, I plan to read those. Like, that's going to be my main focus moving on, unless I get a book like from a book box or something that gets released that I'm like really interested in and I want to read it right then. I'm going to focus on this list of books that I have, or the stack of books. You can't see it, but I have a giant stack of books right here next to me, and they are all of the books that I'm going to focus on reading the rest of the year, so that I don't have any books. I really don't want to have any unread books sitting on my shelf that I've had for longer than a month, because you buy a book and you're excited about it, and the best time, I've heard that the best time to read a book is the second you get it. So that's like my goal. Like, I want to get to the point where I have to buy the books that I'm going to read in the next month because I don't have anything else to read. Or just go back to using the library and save myself some money, because then if it's a horrible book, I don't have to go through purchasing it first and then having to get rid of it if I didn't like it. So, like I had to do with, what was that one? The Poppy War. That's like a $25 book or whatever, $30 book, because it's adult fantasy and they charge like freaking arm and a leg for those things. So, and I hated it. It was horrible. I really didn't like it at all. And now I have to just get rid of it because I'm not going to keep it. Why would I keep a book that I hated? That just doesn't, I don't know. To me, that doesn't make any sense. But anyways, I'm getting off track. So let's go ahead and get started with this list. So the first series, I guess, that I have on this list is called, it's the Wolf Hall Trilogy by Hilary Mantel. It is adult historical fiction, and it is set in medieval London, so like the 1500s, and it focuses on the adult life of Thomas Cromwell. I guess he was pretty prominent back then in English. He wasn't like from a noble family or anything, but he like somehow got his way into like the king's inner circle of the time. So it's chronicling his life, and I'm reading the first book right now, which is titled Wolf Hall. And I actually ordered it in 2020, but it didn't show up at my door until January 2021. So I only count, like, a book becomes an unread book on my shelf when I get it, not when I purchase it. So that probably doesn't make any sense. But I don't add a book to my unread shelf until I actually get it, because sometimes you pre-order stuff and then for whatever reason you end up having to cancel the pre-order. So I don't count it until it shows up on my doorstep. So this was technically my first purchase of 2021. And the other two books in the series these books are dense. Like, they're super dense. So the next book after Wolf Hall is called Bring Up the Bodies. That is the second one in the trilogy. And then the third and final book is called The Mirror and the Light. And like, this is a beastie book. It's freaking huge. I don't even know how many pages it is. It's really heavy. If you are wondering, it's 882 pages. But if you're wondering, these are the UK hardcovers, and I got them from Waterstones. And yes, I live in the US, and yes, I paid to ship these to my house because I'm crazy like that. And this set it was like a box gift set, and I don't know if it's still available, but if you're like into historical fiction, like especially the older kind of historical fiction, not like just World War II historical fiction, because I feel like that's a genre all by itself. But if you're into historical fiction and you like to like read some of the historical fiction that's based like long time ago, like ancient type stuff, I really like these so far. They're really dense, they're kind of hard to understand, but I think they're really good. So yeah, these are two giant books I need to knock off my unread TBR before 2021 is over. I would love to do that. Next, we have a book called Goldenhand. This is by Garth Nix. This is the 5th book in his Old Kingdom series. So I could have put that in my reread, because technically it's a reread because I read all of them except for this one and the one that is coming out. I just found out there's a new one coming out in September, I think. It's like the 6th book in this series. So and I already had planned to reread the Old Kingdom series this year, so I have been audiobooking them because I literally read them so many times. I think this is like the 3rd or 4th time I've read the series, and I just never got to Goldenhand. And then there's a new one coming out, so I guess technically this book could have gone on the finish my rereads list, but it's just wherever. So I have read Lyriel and, no, what is the first one? Sabriel is the first book, which I have reread this year already, and I just reread Lyriel. I listened to it on audiobook. And then the third one is called Crier or something like that. I don't necessarily remember what all the names are called, but I just have to reread that series so then I can get to this one, which I have never actually read. And then, and this one's been hanging out on my shelf since January too. And then I can get right into the 6th book once it gets released in September. So I definitely, I'm going to be listening to the next few books in this series, the ones that I've already reread, and then I will be reading this one physically, and then obviously the new one I will also be reading physically as well. So that's my plans for this one. I'm probably going to be finishing up this series probably by October, I would say, because the newest book gets released in towards the end of September, so I probably won't even be getting it until the beginning of October. So that's my plan, is to read this series or reread it up to this point, and then read this one and then read the one after that. So some of these books on this list are books I've already talked about or series I've already talked about, but these are all of the ones that I've purchased since the beginning of the year. And the next one is The Mask Falling by Samantha Shannon. I kind of went in order of when I got them. So the Wolf Hall trilogy was the first set I got this year, and then Goldenhand was the next book that I got after that. And then this one is next, and I've already talked about this series, so I really don't need to talk about it again, but this is one of the unread books that I have from earlier this year. Next, we have Bone Crier's Dawn by Catherine Purdy, and this one is a YA fantasy. It is the second book in a duology, the first book being called Bone Crier's Moon, and it's about witches, and it's set in France, or a country like France. I don't think it's actually France, but it's a country that's like that. I really like it. I think it's a great YA read, and I'm actually going to be buddy reading this one in July. Well, it's July right now, but I'm going to be buddy reading this one this month with my friend Brianna, so this will be another book checked off the list this month, which is very exciting. Next, we have The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni, and this is, I want to say it's the first book in a trilogy, but it might be a duology. And it is another YA fantasy. It has a really cool premise to it. I don't know an awful lot about it, other than it's set in a prison, and it's called The Prison Healer, so someone has some kind of magic in here at some point. And I don't know, I really can't say, but I am excited to read it because 1, it sounds interesting, 2, the words are large, and 3, it's barely 400 pages long. So it's just another, a quick YA read I can knock off my shelves pretty quickly. So I like to intersperse these with the heavier historical fictions and the adult fantasies and the science fictions that I read. So I might actually pick this one up after I finish Wolf Hall, because I need a break from my brain hurting trying to understand what the heck is even going on in that book. So anyways, back to the topic, focus. This is a book that I'm looking forward to, but I'm not so excited to read it that I can't handle it. I just want to find out what the heck it's even about. So looking forward to that one. The next 2 books on my list are the first 2 books in a trilogy, and they are The Maiden Ship and The Lion of the Sea by Michelin Rickman. They are self-published, and they are just teeny tiny little YA fantasy books, and I am excited to read them. I don't really know what they are about. The first one is only 262 pages long, so like I said, in between those real dense books that I have been reading lately, I can just be oh, let's just read these tiny books. This one's only 232 pages long. So again, not super impatient to get to them, but they're books that I have been interested in reading, and I purchased them, so now I need to read them. Oh, and speaking of those dense fantasy books, so the next 2 books are A Time of Blood and A Time of Courage by John Gwynne. These are big beastie boys. And they are the second and third novels in his Blood and Bone series, or trilogy. I guess it's a trilogy. And yeah, I read A Time of Dread a couple of months ago, a month and a half ago, and I really liked it. So I have A Time of Blood on my TBR for July, and I thought I might read that after Wolf Hall, but I don't know, we will see. But again, 2 big books that I need to get through before at least before the end of 2021, or like before, I don't know, Christmas, because apparently nobody reads around Christmas because you're busy all the time. I just have big plans for like my summer and fall reading, and I have a lot of things to get through. Alright, the last book on this list is The Girl in the Mountain by Mark Lawrence. This is the sequel to The Girl in the Stars, and I don't know how many books this series is going to have in it, but this one just got released in like March or April of this year, so I really liked The Girl in the Stars. It left off on a gigantic, freakingly huge cliffhanger, which I was like kind of mad about because I really don't like cliffhangers. But I did wait for this one to get released before I read the first one, but I'm pretty sure this one's probably going to end with another cliffhanger, and I have literally no idea when the next book is going to get released. I think next year maybe sometime, or I'm not sure. But I just like to punish myself. That's just how I roll. I'm like, oh, a new book, let's read it. And then it ends, and then I have to wait a year for the next book to come out. And I'm like, why do I do this to myself? Why? Why can't I just wait until they all get released and then I can just read them all? I don't know. I don't know what my problem is. But anyways, I'm actually very excited to get to this one. Kind of like the same excitement level to get to A Time of Blood, the other book I just showed you, because I really liked the first books, and freaking cliffhangers. I can't. Why? Why do authors have to do that? Anyways, this is the last book last unread book that I purchased in the beginning of this year that I need to get to before 2021 ends, or that I would prefer to get to, or like I would just want to sit down and read all of these books. Am I the only one who gets like super motivated to read when you talk about books? Because I like want to just sit down and like just pound through like 10 of these books, and I know that's not gonna happen because like I have things that I have to do, like, you know, take care of my house and watch my kids and make sure we have food on the table at night for dinner. So yeah, I don't know, I just get really excited to read and motivated to read when I'm talking about all of the unread books that I have. There are series that I started this year or have started previously, and I need to finish them. The first one that I have is Dune by Frank Herbert. It's an older science fiction series, and it was written in like the 1960s or something like that. So it's not super old, but it's old enough. It's like basically a classic at this point. They're releasing a movie for Dune this year. I'm freaking excited about that. So I just need to finish reading it before the end of the year. I think there's 7, 8 books maybe in the series, and I read this one and the second one, and I liked both of them. I really liked this one. The second one was okay, but it like when I do the book review video for that one, I'll explain why that one was just okay and wasn't really super awesome. But like the whole thing has been published and released for years and years, and I have literally no excuse for not finishing the series this year. So that's something like I started reading it this year, and I would like to finish it this year because I can, because all of the books are out and there's literally no reason not to. The other one that I have is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin, and this is the first book in the Serpent and Dove trilogy, and the last book is getting released this month actually. I did not realize it was getting released so early. I thought it was going to get released in like August or September. But this one is one that I have buddy read all of, well, the first 2 books with my friend Brianna. So there's Serpent and Dove, and then the second one is called Blood and Honey, and I buddy read both of those with her, and so we're just waiting for the third one to get released so we can buddy read that one. I think probably in August we'll plan for that. But yeah, I'm excited to like wrap up this series. I think this one got... Yeah, this one was published in 2019. Blood and Honey came out in 2020, and then Gods and Monsters is the third one, and that one will come out, you know, this year in 2021. So 1 book a year, that's pretty good. Again, another series where I'm like, why am I making us read these before the whole thing is released? Because then we could just read them all. Anyways, that's my problem, not your guys's. So this is like the last series that I have ongoing that's not a reread that I can finish this year because the final book is out. So those are all of my reading plans for like the rest of 2021. I would love to be able to get through all of these unread books in like the next 3 months, so then I could focus on all of my rereads at the end of the year, or at least focus more on the books that I have gotten in like the second half of 2021, because I really don't want to carry over too many 2021 books to 2022, just because I don't want to, because it took me almost half of the year to get through all of my 2020 books that I had carried over from last year. So I'm trying to avoid that happening again. Again, I said that I would really love to buy the books or borrow the books from the library that I want to read in the next 30 days, just because I don't have any unread books to read. So that's like my ultimate goal. I know in order for that to happen, I need to buy less books, but you know, authors keep writing really cool things and I want to read those really cool things. So I don't know if I will ever get to that like ultimate not having any unread books. At the very minimum, I would like to have 5 or less unread books on my shelves, because I know I can read around 5 books a month, give or take, depending on how like big and dense they are. So anyways, those are my plans for the rest of the year. What are your guys' plans? Like, what books do you plan to read? What series do you want to read? Do you have anything you want to reread? What are you looking forward to reading? I would just love to know. Are you like me and you have like certain times of the year or for certain genres? Like, I love reading historical fiction in the summer. Literally, I have no idea why that is, but I love reading historical fiction in the summer. I don't get it. Summer is just for historical fiction. I don't understand. I like reading science fiction in the spring. Again, it makes no sense, but I'll read anything anytime, but I really gravitate toward historical fiction in the summer. Literally don't know why. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know. But I'll read like fantasy and science fiction all year round. I don't care. Those are like all the time. I want to read those all the time. So anyways, this video has gotten long enough. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you in another video. Bye!